and welcome to Business 360. I'm Ritu Singh and here are the headlines that we're tracking for you this evening. Sensex and Nifty snap a 4-day losing streak. The Nifty reclaims 2600,000, but broader markets underperform. The rupee recovers sharply after hitting a new low of 90.42 against the dollar. 60% of market participants expect a rate cut tomorrow as the RBI gears up for the monetary policy decision. Some expect the central bank to keep ammunition dry after the steep decline in the rupee. Aviation regulator summons IndiGo as flight disruptions leave thousands of passengers stranded for the third day now. Close to 350 flights cancelled till afternoon from 4 major airports alone. The airline cites a multitude of unforeseen operational challenges, including technology glitches and updated crew rostering rules. The Pilots Association claims IndiGo's prolonged, unorthodox, lean manpower strategy is the reason behind the current flight disruptions, accuse the airline of cartel-like behavior and short-sighted planning despite a 2-year window to prepare for new crew rostering rules. Russian President Vladimir Putin lands in New Delhi this evening. Prime Minister Modi will host him at a private dinner at his official residence. Several bilateral agreements, commercial deals, FTA and defense talks are on the agenda. US President Donald Trump says the path ahead for the Ukraine peace talks is unclear. Trump's statement comes after a meeting between Putin and Trump's envoy failed to reach a compromise. Ukraine President Zelensky rules out giving up territory that Russia has captured, and Russia attacks key regions in Ukraine overnight, including a power facility. The Trump administration tightens the vetting process for H1B visas used largely by skilled Indian workers. All applicants must make their social media profiles public as part of a review of their online presence. CNBC TV 18 Newsbreak confirmed TataPower CEO says the company is close to finalising a power purchase agreement with the Gujarat government, paving the way for the revival of the Mundra plant. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman moves the Health and National Security Cess Bill in the Lok Sabha. Congress MPs demand protest over air pollution and demand a debate in Parliament. Well, first up, all of the day's trading action. The Nifty and the Sensex snapped its 4-day losing streak to end mildly higher in trade. The Nifty managed to hold on to the 26,000 mark. IT and realty led from the front. Broader markets underperformed the blue chips, with the Nifty Bank and Mid-Cap Index ending the day lower. Prashant Nair is here with a wrap of the day's trading action.
A better day, a bit of a bounce, and I think that's what one can hope for in markets like this, which basically have been drifting sideways lower and in a pretty painful, grinding way. So from the lows, of course, big recovery, biggish recovery, I should say. The Nifty, of course, ending on the day with gains of 30-40 points, which is, I guess, pretty good given the scenario we've been in lately. No real big movers as far as specific indices are concerned, one way or the other, because if you just look at it, the IT services index has been bobbing around up and down. Today it was up about 1.33%, but that's it. I mean, there was the one index with gains of over 1%. At the downside, the consumer index was down a little bit, and the energy index was down a little bit as well. Then I'll come straight to specific names, large caps, to get this going. Adani stocks did well, actually. Enterprises, ports, both up, and number 1, number 2 gains in the Nifty. And then, the number 3 gainer was Apollo Hospitals, which was barely in the green. So even with this kind of a gain, of 30-40 point gain, not very much to show for it in terms of single stocks. IndiGo was the biggest loser with about a 2.5% cut. And the next loser on the Nifty was Hindalco with not even a 1% cut. So, as I've been saying, a bit of a lack of enthusiastic kind of sessions is what we've had for a while now. Market breadth was negative, although that tried to close the gap. Keynes was the number 1 volume-led loser. Kotak Equities, the broker, highlighting some working capital issues out of the annual report on a note which is dated yesterday. A market-taking note. Hitachi was down 8%, a part of our chatter list today, with Nimesh highlighting that the market is fearing loss of an order. But big volumes, big cut. Grow was down about 6%. Biocon down 5%. Perhaps more fundraising afoot and the market did not like it. Ola Electric down 5%. Wockhardt was down 6%, basically giving back some of the gains it's accumulated over the last two sessions. MV was one of the, we spoke with the management yesterday, stock ended up 10%, down 10% today. And that's the kind of market we've been in without too much surety. JM Financial, Patel Engineering are some of the others which lost ground in trade. On the upside, Hindustan Copper was the big volume-led gainer, number one, 7% higher. Capillary recent listing, 12%. There was Hikal, which was up about 5%. Kirloskar Engine Oil, 7% gain. Petronet was up 4.5%. India Cement, 10% gain, by the way, at close, 413. Lakshmi Dental, which has been a bombed-out name, 14% higher, and so on and so forth. So better as compared to the last few days, but broader market still quite sluggish. Back to you.
Well, Prashant, thanks very much for joining in with that. Now, the rupee recovered in late trade to fall below the psychological 90 mark to the dollar barrier. Now, this after the currency hit a new low of 90.42 against the dollar during the day. Currency dealers said the recovery was because of limited dollar selling by the Reserve Bank of India and lower demand for dollars in the market overall. But moving on to silver prices, which showed no signs of letting up. The white metal recently hit new highs, crossing 1.85 lakh rupees per kg. This year alone, in fact, silver has risen over 100%. The rally is being driven by hopes of a US rate cut, along with tight supply in global markets. Inventories in China have also dropped to their lowest levels in nearly a decade, even as investors move record volumes over to London. Now, ratings agency Fitch has raised India's growth forecast for FY26 to 7.4%, which is up from 6.9% earlier. The firm said that India's growth reflects strong real income gains, solid consumer sentiment, and the impact of GST rate cuts. Fitch also expects growth to moderate to 6.4% in FY27 and soften further then to 6.2% by FY28. But the big story that we're tracking for you today, flight cancellations at India's largest airline, IndiGo, has left passengers stranded for the third consecutive day. Close to 350 flights were cancelled by afternoon at just 4 major airports. The Civil Aviation Minister has now summoned IndiGo and other stakeholders from Delhi to Mumbai to Bengaluru to Hyderabad, where chaos erupted at airports as passengers clashed with IndiGo officials. Many even took to social media to share their ordeal. Now, IndiGo has cited a multitude of unforeseen operational challenges, including technology glitches and updated crew rostering rules. However, the Pilots Association has claimed that IndiGo's, and I quote, prolonged unorthodox lean manpower strategy, unquote, is the reason behind the current flight disruptions. They even accused the airline of cartel-like behavior and short-sighted planning. Now, despite a 2-year window to prepare for new crew rostering rules. So what exactly are these rules? Well, the second and final phase of the rules were implemented just last month. Under these, the weekly rest period for pilots has been increased to 48 hours from 36 before, and night landings have been limited to 2 from 6 earlier. Shivani Bazaz and Santya Gora, our team of reporters, bring us up to speed with their reports from Delhi and Mumbai.
Well, absolutely. India's aviation system is facing one of its most challenging days in recent months, with a surge in flight disruptions across major metros. And what began as operational strain for IndiGo has now snowballed into widespread cancellations and delays. 350 plus flights cancelled so far, 95 from Delhi, 85 from Mumbai, 84 from Bengaluru and 74 from Hyderabad. And these 4 cities together accounted for the bulk of the day's cancellations. And not just cancellations, the delays added to the chaos. 5 to 6 hours average delays on all major airports. The on-time performance by IndiGo fell sharply to 19% on December 3rd. This is a massive drop from 84% in October and 67% in the whole of November. And the ripple effect was felt across the entire network. Domestic passenger traffic slipped from 5.36 lakh flyers on November 30th to 4.74 lakh on December 3rd. And total domestic flights operated also fell during this time. This is a clear sign of mounting operational pressures nationwide, and especially on the largest domestic carrier, IndiGo. Now, as regulators monitor the evolving situation, let's see how soon IndiGo can turn this situation around. Back to you.
हम सुबह 4 बजे आ गए थे एयरपोर्ट।
आप सुबह 4 बजे से एयरपोर्ट पे हैं?
बिल्कुल
जी। तो आखिरी बार कब इंटीमेशन दिया गया?
कोई इंटीमेशन नहीं, 10 बजे के बाद कोई इंटीमेशन नहीं है
जी।
और वहाँ भी कोई सुनवाई नहीं है। एक आदमी की ड्यूटी खत्म होती है, दूसरा आ जाता है छुट्टी।
तो अभी क्या बता रहे हैं, डिले है या कैंसिल है?
कुछ नहीं बता रहे जी।
ओके।
जाना नहीं जाना तो जाके कैंसिल करवा लो अपना।
तो आपने क्या डिसाइड किया, आपको कैंसिल?
मैं कैंसिल करवा के बाय ट्रेन जा रहा हूँ।
रात में 11:30 को मालूम हुआ, मुझे मैसेज आया
जी
कि आपका टिकट फ्लाइट कैंसिल हो गया बोल
जी।
के। तो मैं एयरपोर्ट में गया, वहाँ पे जाने के बाद मैंने रिपोर्ट करने के बाद मुझे उन्होंने बोला आपको ऑप्शन होगा दूसरा होना, आपको या तो रिफंड पेमेंट मिल जाएंगे, नहीं तो फिर आपको दूसरा फ्लाइट दिया जाएगा। दूसरा फ्लाइट दीजिए मुझे जब पास होना। तो उसकी वजह से मुझे ये फ्लाइट दिया वाला है। अभी भी फ्लाइट देरी है, यहाँ पे दिखा रहा है 8 बजे का दिखा रहा।
आपको अभी भी उम्मीद नहीं है कि समय से आएगी?
मुश्किल है।
The IndiGo airline chaos at major airports across the nation continues for the fourth consecutive day. On Wednesday till 5 p.m. as many as 33 flights were cancelled and 51 flights were delayed at Mumbai airport alone. IndiGo has cited a technical glitch and crew shortage due to winter season rostering as the reasons behind the disruption. However, aviation experts say the situation has worsened due to a lack of proper planning while implementing the revised flight duty time limitations, which led to an acute pilot shortage. Experts also point out that an Airbus software patch rolled out over the weekend played a significant role. Right now, we are at Mumbai airport and this is a queue outside IndiGo counter. These passengers here are waiting for information regarding their cancelled flights and they are also trying to reschedule their flights. Now, if we talk about all these factors, whether it's the crew shortage because of winter season rostering or technical glitch or Airbus software patch or the lack of proper planning for revised FTTL, all this has led. All this have had a domino effect on the operations, and the DGCA has now summoned the airlines. IndiGo, in the meantime, has said that it's working round the clock to rectify the situation, but also admits that it may take another 48 hours to fully normalize operations. IndiGo claims that it is providing, it is making proper food and accommodation related arrangements for the passengers. However, the passengers we spoke to had a different experience.
From Mumbai to Hyderabad, I received a message from IndiGo at 5:30 in the morning that my flight has got cancelled. And I am calling the call center from last 2 hours. I could not reach the call centers. And everyone who is waiting here from last 2 hours. I am in this line from 1.5 hours and I have not moved forward actually. There is no response from the IndiGo people.
Continue our focus on that big story, and Madiha Mujawar joins us now from outside the Ministry of Civil Aviation, which has summoned IndiGo and other stakeholders over the issue. Madiha, take us through what you're picking up from there.
Well, top IndiGo officials visited the DGCA to explain about the large-scale cancellations across Indian airports. Today, we saw over 300 flights that were cancelled across airports, and at the heart of the issue is the new FDTL norms, the new flight duty time limitation norms that have come into effect. So I'll tell you what the FDTL norms are. The new norms require more rest for the crew. So weekly rest has increased from 36 hours to 48 hours, and the night landings have decreased from 6 landings per night to 2 landings per night. And the definition of night has changed from 12 a.m. to 5 a.m. to 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. And this means that lesser number of crew is now available for IndiGo to be rostered on different flights. And adding to that is the winter season and the cancellations leading to the fog. So when the flights are delayed and the crew is hitting the FDTL, which means lesser number of crew is available for IndiGo to be rostered, and that is why we are seeing these large-scale cancellations. On top of it, IndiGo has added more aircraft, and IndiGo has also increased its schedule for the winter season, which means it has increased its capacity, and it doesn't have adequate crew to operate these flights, which is also leading to these large-scale cancellations. IndiGo, remember, operates 2,200 flights, and which is why the scale of the cancellations is so huge. And now what is happening is that the pilot unions are not agreeing with this. They say that this is poor planning on part of IndiGo. IndiGo already knew that these norms were coming. The norms were introduced in January 2024 and were to be implemented in 2 phases. So the first phase was implemented on the 1st of July and the second phase was implemented on the 1st of November. So pilot unions are alleging that IndiGo had enough time to hire more pilots and to get their rosters and their schedules back on track. So they're saying that this is poor planning on part of IndiGo. They could have hired more pilots. They're also going to an extent to say this could be an arm-twisting tactic from the airline, by the airline, to tell the DGCA to relax these norms so that they don't have to hire these many pilots or to hire more crew. For now, IndiGo has assured the regulator that it is getting its schedule back on track, and it will, cancel flights to minimize the disruptions for passengers. But looking at the situation, looking at the weather condition, it looks like this situation and this inconvenience for passengers is going to stay for a few more days.
All right, and Madhya, thanks very much for joining in. We will be closely tracking those developments. For now, it's time for a short break. But up next, the Russian President Vladimir Putin will be landing in New Delhi this evening, and Prime Minister Modi will be hosting him at a private dinner at his official residence. We'll get you all the details on that visit when we return. Welcome back. You're watching Business 360. Now, Russian President Putin will embark on his two-day visit to India today. This is the president's first visit to India since the war with Ukraine began. Now, Putin is expected to land in Delhi at 6:35 p.m. today, and he will have a private dinner with Prime Minister Narendra Modi later this evening. Talks between the two leaders are likely to focus on boosting defense ties and strengthening bilateral trade ties. Now, this visit comes at a time when US President Donald Trump has claimed that India will be significantly reducing its purchases of Russian oil. Parikshit Luthra is standing by with more details on this visit. Parikshit, take us through the Russian president's agenda in here for the next 27 hours.
President Putin will be spending approximately 30 hours in India. Tonight, after landing, he has a private dinner with Prime Minister Modi. Tomorrow, he receives a ceremonial reception at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. He will visit RateCut and then hold extensive discussions with Prime Minister Modi, and then both leaders will address a press conference. President Putin and Prime Minister Modi will address business leaders. Finally, President Putin meets India's President Draupadi Murmu at Rashtrapati Bhavan before departing from India. We can expect economic cooperation to be a major focus area during this visit. The president is coming with 7 ministers, a large business delegation, 10 intergovernmental agreements, 15 commercial deals are likely to be signed during this visit. Both nations will adopt a joint statement and announce a future economic cooperation program 2030. Ahead of this visit, Russia has promised to increase imports of chemicals, raw materials, textiles, consumer goods and food products as well from India. There will be discussions on an India-Eurasian Economic Union FTA as well, but don't expect to be signed anytime soon. India is going to push for greater exports of pharma, textiles, agriculture products to Russia. Both sides will sign an agreement on migration of Indian skilled workers to Russia. There will be discussions on Eurasian transport framework to boost connectivity. India and Russia will explore increasing connectivity via international north-south transport corridor and the Chennai-Vladivostok corridor as well. There could be an agreement on Arctic shipbuilding. Tech, space and nuclear energy sectors will be outlined as major priority areas for the future. Both sides will reaffirm target of $100 billion in bilateral trade by 2030. For context, total bilateral trade was $68.7 billion in FY25. Exports stood at around $4.9 billion, and this included pharma, chemicals, steel, marine products to Russia. India imports $63 billion worth of crude, sunflower oil, fertilizers, coking coal and precious metals when it comes to from Russia. Now, on the defense front, there will be an announcement on ratification of a military logistics pact which will allow India and Russia to access each other's military bases. Russia is likely to make a strong pitch for full technology transfer for the Su-57, but India won't make any commitments. Russia will propose selling S-500 air defense system to India, but no decision is likely during this visit. India and Russia will explore co-development and co-production in several areas. Now, when it comes to energy, Indian entities are likely to continue importing Russian oil. 35% of India's crude imports in November came from Russia. Russian oil imports were around 1.9 million barrels per day till November 21st, and our crude imports from Russia will continue in the range of 800,000 barrels per day in December. Now, this is because Indian entities can buy oil from non-sanctioned entities as of now. No secondary sanctions has been imposed by US as of now. When it comes to global issues, there will be extensive discussions on the Russia-Ukraine war, also on strengthening BRICS and reforming the Shanghai Cooperation Organization.
All right, Parikshit, we'll leave it at that. Thanks very much for joining in. The Russian Defense Ministry has said that its forces have claimed control over a village in southeastern Ukraine. Ukraine's military has said it struck 2 Russian oil depots in Russia, which sparked fires across the site. No casualties have been reported. Meanwhile, US President Trump has said that the path ahead for peace in Ukraine is unclear. This comes after the special envoy Steve Witkoff and Trump's advisor Jared Kushner had a reasonably good meeting with President Putin. Witkoff and Kushner reportedly spent hours at the Kremlin but departed with no breakthrough on ending the war.
President Putin had a very good meeting yesterday with Jared Kushner and with Steve Witkoff. What comes out of that meeting, I can't tell you, because it does take 2 to tango. You know, Ukraine, I think we have something pretty well worked out with them. They're very satisfied, considering. But the sad part is, if I were president, no war would have ever happened. They would have had 100% of their territory. Nothing would have happened. It's a very sad situation.
And in other news, the Trump administration has ordered enhanced vetting of applications for H1B visas for highly skilled workers. An internal State Department memo ordered officers to consider rejecting anyone that is involved in censorship or free speech. The officials have been asked to review resumes or LinkedIn profiles of H1B applicants and family members. The enhanced vetting will apply to both new and repeat applicants as well. But back home in India, all eyes are on the Reserve Bank of India's monetary policy decision, which is now less than 24 hours away. And the market seems to be expecting a rate cut, but with very low conviction. According to a poll of economists by CNBC TV 18, 60% of the respondents are expecting the central bank's monetary policy committee to cut rates. Lata Venkatesh is here with more on what we can expect tomorrow at 10 a.m.
It's a highly divided street. Let's take our own CNBC TV 18 polls. The Citizens MPC, the mock MPC that we do, that asked for a status quo. No cut, 3:2. So it's a narrow vote. Ritu's poll, which covers a larger number of bankers and economists, gave a pro-cut vote, but it was just 60-40. So again, it's only a wafer-thin majority. As you said, when that 0.25% inflation for October came on November 12th, the whole market went over to a cut. The GDP of 8.2 made a large number of people come towards a possible no cut. And then, of course, there was the Reserve Bank governor interview as well to a media house, and that also sparked dovishness. But after that, there was this, rupee wobble, not even wobble, it's a rather cascading fall, which has led to more doubts. Now, you know, the Reserve Bank governor clearly said in his latest interview, that we said that there is space to support growth. Now, he can reiterate that. We agree that there is space to support growth, but we don't think there is a need to support growth. And we may need this ammunition considering the financial instability in the market. So you can get very strong arguments on both sides. I can only tell you that what will happen if there is a cut. There isn't much that is going to benefit the economy, because banks have figured a way of moving out of 100 basis point cut. You know, and now they've started improving their margins. A quarter basis, you know, many of them have now moved from external benchmark lending loans to MCLR loans. They've, you know, it's not much that is going to be passed on when there is a rate cut. And the bond markets will not pass on anything, because it's the last cut. Markets, as always, like in stocks, look forward, look ahead. And since there are no more cuts left, you're likely to see the 10-year remain at 6.5. So the incremental advantage of a cut is not very much as far as markets and banks are concerned, but you will definitely see a positive impact on auto stocks, on real estate stocks, etc. I think the biggest thing the market will watch out for will be guidance, what he says. If he says always ready to support the economy or something extremely dovish, that will be positive, but even bigger will be his liquidity hints. Does he say he will come out and buy bonds? That OMO, purchase of bonds, is the biggest thing that the market is watching out for. And if he says anything to steady the currency. So what he says on currency and what he says on liquidity is what is going to be important. Rate cut has actually gone down in terms of what the market's watching.
Well, Lata, thanks very much for joining in with that. On that note, we're going to wrap up this edition of Business 360. But stay with us. More news and updates will continue right here on CNBC TV 18 after this short break.